All right, welcome to the core in router. So, looks like you successfully got part one and part two blue done. So, now we're going to go ahead and look at the configurations for the core switch and the router. So, here's our core switch. It's going to look very similar. We're going to set up the configuration of the name, enabling the secret password, encrypting it, doing a no IP domain name. We're going to do the line console, and we're going to set the password, set up logging, set a timeout, set our history. Now the other difference here where we're going to make the change is we're going to make this a client. So this will be a client configuration, and looks like I spelled client wrong. So we're going to set up client, and then here the other difference is all the other switches, the blue, the red, the green, and the yellow, have switch port access and trunks. Here we're only going to be setting up trunks only, so that's the difference. Is here we're going to set up, because these are all just uplinks to each other. Even with the router, it's an uplink, because the router is set up here to route between the different VLANs, route us between the sales, marketing, and printer to the server farm. And then it provides us a little access to this web server and FTP server in the cloud. So it provides us, some pseudo internet access too on top of that. But always, the configuration is the same. So let's look at the server. So here's the gateway configuration. So again, scrolling up, looking at the configuration, again, we're doing similar things here. We're setting up a host name, enabling the secret password, enabling, or encrypting of the passwords, doing the domain lookup again, doing the console configuration. Pretty much this part here all the way up has been the same, other than changing the host name. So now you've had experience doing it once. Now you'll be a pro at setting up a host name and setting up the enable password, encrypting it, and set up the no IP domain lookup and some basic line configuration consoles. So now what we're going to do is we're setting up part two, which is going to be the router on the stick. Because each VLAN we need, if we want to route between them, we're going to do that. So here's a couple, let's do a quick rundown. So our interface G2 is our public IP. So again, we're going to set an address, do the no shutdown. Here's where it's different in the interface G01. We're going to do no shutdown to the interface, but we're going to create sub interfaces for each VLAN. So we're creating a sub interface .5 to manage VLAN 5. We're creating a sub interface 15 to manage VLAN 15. We're doing a sub interface for VLAN 25, and we're going to do VLAN 35. We're going to set a sub interface for VLAN 35 and a sub interface for 45 for the network marketing. So that's going to be some of the differences. So again, here what we're going to do, we're going to set up an IP helper. So this tells us, so we can have one DHCP server on our network. This will tell, when the PCs are doing a broadcast, this will tell the router where to send the DHCP request to forward it. Here, this is how we're telling it how to set up the router's interface to be part of VLAN 1, and we're setting up the IP addresses so each VLAN has their default gateway. So there we go. So you notice that we haven't set up any routing protocols. Again, these are just notes for the different VLANs in here for myself. So that's not what we're going to be using for this purpose. Again, because we only have one router, it's going to know how to get to all the different networks. Because why? Because we're using sub interfaces. So right now, we don't see any of these sub interfaces, but as we get this all set up, we will. All right. So let's start with the switch and work our way up to the router. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go to our Coreswitch. And there we go. Get it so it's in more focus. Or we're going to type in enable again. We're going to type in config T. We're going to do host name, and we're going to call it Coreswitch. There we go. Paste that right in. All right, now we're going to type in enable our password. So we're going to type in enable secret, and the secret password is Cisco. And then we're going to do service password. Because we saw how it worked in blue, we don't need to show you again. We're going to do the no IP domain lookup. Looks like you have to type this one all the way out. So now we're going to go into line console, and we're going to go to 0. And you can see now that our prompt has changed from config T to config line. So now we're going to do our password, and we're going to set that up to be Cisco because we love it so much. Then we're going to use log in. We're going to do logging. And if I can spell correctly. So we're going to do logging synchronous, and we're going to do our exec timeout. And we're going to type in the history, size 10. There we go. So now we're going to exit out. So we're just in config T. And then we're going to set up our VT domain. And you should also do it, if you did the CCNA in all caps, please follow the same thing. So we're going to go with the VT mode client. And now we can see that it's switched to client. Scrolling up. And then we're going to set our VT password. Cisco. And there we go. So now in a few moments, once we set up all our interfaces, we should be able to, so until we set up our trunk interface going to it, it's not going to be able to read the VLAN. So we have to set up that port first. So now we are going to go into our interface. So here we're going to go to our G0 to go to our interface 1. So we're going to do interface G0/1, and we're going to go to switch port mode trunk, because again it's our uplink. And then we're going to go and do our description, and we're going to say this is our gateway. And then, so after that, we're going to upload. We're going to up arrow, go to 2, and we're going to do the trunk. And then from here, we're going to change our description to blue, or you can call it the server farm. And then we're going to go to interface FA. And then we're going to go start with 11, and then that's going to be our trunk mode, and then that's going to be our description to red, and then we're going to go to port 12, and then we're going to go to the switch trunk access again, and then our description is going to be green. And now we're going to go to port 13 and do the same thing, set up our switch mode and change it to yellow. And that Should be all of it. So let's go ahead and do an exit. Exit. Do a show run. So there we go. We can see our perfect. So our port 11, 12, 13, those are the ones going to the 3 different switches. There we go. So that's 11, green, and there we go. And our gig 1 is going to our router, and our gig 2 is going to our uplink. See? Let's just quickly verify. 2 1s, 11s, 12s, and 13s. Alright, so let's jump into our router now. So we're going to type enable. We're going to set up our host name. Oh, gotta remember to go to config T first. And then host name. Alright, so now we're going to type in enable. And turn off my caps lock. Secret. And the password's going to be Cisco again. So we're going to do our service password encryption. We're going to do the no IP domain look up. There we go. Now we're going to do our line console 0. We're going to do our password of Cisco. We're going to do our login. We're going to do our log in synchronous. And we're going to set up our timeout. There we go. And we're going to set up our history size of 10. Therefore, there we go. We have our basic configuration done. We're going to type in exit to go to config T. And now we're going to create our router on stick interface. So we're going to start with our interface G0/2. We're going to set the IP address of 15.15.15.1 with the 255.255.255.0. We're going to do no shut to bring the interface up. There we go. And then we're going to go to interface G0/1. Here we're going to do no shut just to bring the interface up. Now we're going to type in interface G0/1.5. And then we're going to add the description. So we're going to add all this fun stuff in there. So again, we're adding our description, our IP helper, our encapsulation, our IP address. We don't have to do a no shut because the master interface is done. So now I'm just going to do the next one. And again, we have now created a new interface. And now I'm going to do the next one. And you can see we're in the sub interfaces, so we don't have to keep changing anything because we're in the same spot. So again, we're going to do this for each VLAN that we have. There we go. So now if we do exit, you can see that it took us out of the sub interface. If we type in exit again, and now if we do a show run, here we can see here's the additional virtual interfaces that we created, or sub interfaces that we created. And then if we hover over this, and now you can see here's all the additional interfaces that we created. So that's it. That's all we have to do for this portion. So I'll see you in the red video. Red is next.